They were both using the Taylor name, and the name of Stagg's company was actually the E.H. Taylor Company.
Really?
That was the name of his company that he was using.
E.H. Taylor, George T. Stagg, just some of the famous names in the whiskey world, and also involved in quite a bit of controversy with respect to who owns the name and where it can be used. It's a common argument that still rages today with some brands. On this episode, Brian Haara, spirits attorney and author, sheds some light on the legal proceedings that happen with brand names. Welcome to this episode of the Great American Whiskey Cookers. I am here at Oxmoor Farms in Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm talking with Brian Haara, a spirits attorney. It's not too often that we get to sit down with an honest-to-goodness spirits attorney and talk legal stuff. So,
honest to goodness is pushing it.
well, okay, yes,
Spirits attorney.
spirits attorney, right? So tell everyone real quick a little bit about you and who you are, what you do.
Sure, I'm an attorney here in Louisville, and I do business litigation, work for businesses, but a lot for spirits companies, whether they're starting a brand, whether they want to start a vintage spirits bar, whether they have trademark issues, maybe another distillery is infringing on it, they come to me.
Fantastic. Okay, so I got a question. Tell me about, I'm a whiskey geek, I'm a whiskey nerd, so I do all sorts of reading, and you have a book here. We'll talk a little bit about that later in a little bit. But tell me about some of the big kind of brand fights that have happened over history.
Maybe the biggest brand fight comes from the guy who started the first brand. He actually started Old Crow. He knew that this dead guy named Crow made great whiskey and it would be a good brand. So he started that brand again.
Okay.
He goes out on his own. He starts a distillery called the OFC. He loves his name. His name's Colonel E.H. Taylor, and he puts it on all the barrel heads. He goes bankrupt. The guy who buys him out of it is George T. Stagg, another name that people recognize. And they're partners for a while, and they go their separate ways. That's when Colonel Taylor opens the Old Taylor Distillery with his sons. And he starts putting his script signature on those barrels and on those bottles. But Stagg is still using his name on those barrels and those bottles and those branding. So they have a 13-year-long legal battle that goes up and down to the courts of appeals, back down. Stagg wins one, Taylor wins the next. It keeps coming back and forth. And Taylor ends up winning, but he wants damages, and he ends up really not getting any damages. He just gets to stop Stagg from using his name. So it's all about, can you use my name as your brand? It's my name, why can't I use it? And a lot of people are surprised it took 13 years to get that kind of a decision.
That's a long time for that kind of a fight. So how did they do the whiskey during that time? And were they both using the Taylor name?
They were both using the Taylor name, and the name of Stagg's company was actually the E.H. Taylor Company.
Really?
That was the name of his company that he was using.
So he's making E.H. Taylor whiskey. Colonel Taylor's making
Old Taylor, but putting his name on it.
Oh my God.
Right.
So confusion in the marketplace.
Confusion all over the place.
And so is this a fairly common thing that happens within whiskey?
It happens all the time, and it's happened through history on the old lawsuits that I've found. T.W. Samuels ran into that problem.
From Maker's Mark?
From Maker's Mark. So when Bill Sr. left the old family company, people think, oh, he and Marge figured out the wax and, the wheat recipe in the kitchen, that whole story.
Old bread recipe.
And they opened something called Maker's Mark. Well, no, they didn't. The first thing he tried to open was the T.W. Samuels distillery, and he got sued for it.
Because someone else was using the name?
Because the T.W. Samuels distillery existed in Deatsville, and it was owned by the company that they had sold out to. What other thing that comes up in distilling history all the time is your sons and your brothers and your cousins all distill too. And that happened in the Dant family. So there were two strands of the Dant family. They both called themselves the Dant Distillery. And once they sold out to bigger conglomerates, those two big companies sued each other over who really gets to use the Dant name.
And that's a fairly relevant, that's fairly new, right?
Well, that one is old, but there's a brand new Dant case. So we've got these cases happening in the late 1800s and the 1900s and in the 1940s with the T.W. Samuels. But there's a brand new case from about 2 years ago with Wally Dant, who came back to Kentucky, bought property for the Dant Distillery. He's, you know, he's in the Dant family, from J.W. Dant. And he was trying to revive the Dant legacy and do all these things about the Dant legacy, always hearkening back to J.W. Dant. But J.W. Dant is a brand that has existed and is owned by Heaven Hill, and it's still on the shelves, and it has kept its legacy. There's nothing to revive. So Wally got sued by Heaven Hill.
Oh my God. So it's still relevant. I mean, it still happens today. Those types of lawsuits are still ongoing.
Absolutely.
And it's still a fight. I mean, there's still that, whether it's...
Distilleries are slow learners, I think, is what the example is.
Well, I guess it kind of fits in with the maturation process and everything. It kind of goes hand in hand, right?
It takes a while.
Exactly. If they want, if somebody wants to know more information about you and some of the legal history, your book, is that probably a great way of doing it?
You've got to get Bourbon Justice. That's right. What I do in Bourbon Justice is I tell bourbon's history through these old lawsuits. I got to find them in the archives in Frankfurt, get to hold exhibits from cases that are from the 1890s, and it tells the story of bourbon's history, because during Prohibition, it all got thrown out. So don't listen to marketers, don't listen to the legends. You have to go to the lawsuits, and you find it in Bourbon Justice.
And where do they get the book? How do they get a hold of you?
So easy enough to get it on Amazon. You can also get it online, sipandcorn.com and bourbonjustice.com.
Fantastic. You can find us at thegreatamericanwhiskeycookers.com. Like us on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and of course go to Patreon if you want to become a member. We'd appreciate the support. We'd like to give a huge thank you to Oxmoor Farms for hosting us and letting us sit down with Brian Haara and having this interview and this discussion. And a big thank you also to our Patreon supporters. So until next time, Brian, we always sign off this way. If you can't be good at it. Cheers.
Cheers.
That was fun.
Good.
That was really cool.
Good.
Okay, what else we want to talk about? We talked about home distilling. We talked about fights. I'm trying to go back to my brain. I didn't print the sheet off.
I didn't print anything, but I got it on my phone. There was the case, so 3-tier system in that new case. What did they call the distillery? The California one where they're suing the New York obscure distillery?
Yeah.
Versus Lilly?